Welcome to the Women on the Rise podcast. This is where we talk all things entrepreneurship aimed at female entrepreneurs. Whether you are just starting out or you have a 7 or an 8-figure business, we bring you the greatest tools, techniques, and ideas for inspiration for your business. I also interview some of the world's leading entrepreneurs from all over the world to hear about their businesses and what they've done to grow and scale their businesses. I welcome you to join us in our journey for Women on the Rise. Welcome back to another episode of Women on the Rise, and I am live in Auckland, New Zealand, interviewing fabulous female entrepreneurs. And today I'm joined by Nicola Taylor, who is the co-founder of a couple of really interesting fintechs here in New Zealand. Nicola, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
I am so excited to have you because I love hearing from women who have created really interesting businesses. And you and your husband have created two really interesting businesses that are having quite an impact here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Maybe can you tell our listeners a bit about the businesses that you set up?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So our first business is called Tax Traders. We set that up 12 years ago. And like the name says, effectively we are trading tax positions. So this is part of the legislative framework in New Zealand. It's quite an unusual feature, so probably foreign to many of your listeners around the world. But effectively it enables a taxpayer to pay their tax into what's known as a tax pool. And where we as an intermediary, we can trade overpayments with underpayments. So if you've paid too much tax and I haven't paid enough tax, but we've paid that to the pool, then we can swap the overs and unders. That means that you, with your overpayment, will receive a better return on that. And me with my underpayment, I will not be hit with penalties and what we call use of money interest. So it's quite technical, but effectively what we did is we created really amazing software so that accountants could provide this to many, many more of their clients. So that's the first business.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really interested. Like I've lived and worked in so many different countries.
Sure.
And I've never heard
Correct.
that there's something like that. Is this just something which is unique in New Zealand?
Yes, it's unique in New Zealand. So there are good things about that in terms of we're huge specialists in this area. But I guess as we talk about the entrepreneurial journey and what's next, it does also limit us to New Zealand, so that's potentially one of the downsides. But that's okay because we're entrepreneurs. We have like 1,000 ideas, right?
Yes, we do.
And then the second business is called Taxi. And although we've been working on this for over 2 years, we just launched this 4 weeks ago. So really exciting. And that just took one aspect of the tax pooling framework, which is the ability for a company to access really amazing, affordable, flexible, dignified working capital using their provisional tax payments. And again, we'd been doing this for our very big corporates just a couple of years, and it was actually under lockdown where we did this for a big corporate. We enabled them to trade through lockdown. But I was really overwhelmed with the sense that actually the companies that most needed this were missing out. They didn't have a big tax team. They didn't have a big legal team. They didn't have, tens of thousands of dollars to spend accessing this kind of really revolutionary funding line. So we spent a couple of years turning that into a beautiful app.
Wow.
And
that sounds amazing because, access to finance.
Absolutely.
Everywhere in the world, it is one of the biggest frustrations for small businesses.
Absolutely. Well, we know that lack of access to funding actually stymies entrepreneurialism. It stymies growth. We also know that cash flow concerns, and we've got some lovely piece of research in New Zealand that we've done. Cash flow concerns is what keeps us up at night. That's the number one cause of anxiety and stress for a business owner. And if you're a business owner, you're probably nodding along as you're doing whatever you're doing at the same time, because this resonates with us. We understand that. And I think it's more than just the funding itself. It's also, if you have to interact with a bank, there's a sense that you need to continually prove yourself to them, that potentially they don't understand your business, that they're not going to just naturally kind of support that. And one of the wonderful things about Taxi is because of the way it's set up and it uses provisional tax payments, is actually there's no financial disclosures, there's no credit risk, there's anti-money laundering, of course, but it's like a really flexible, available, it's actually a really wonderful experience. So you kind of feel supported.
And is it something as well where they can get access to finance quickly?
Yes, very quickly, within 2 days, really. And
wow.
Yeah. So, and that's all using the legislative framework, and it's something that really big corporates in New Zealand have been doing for years. It was just unavailable to the small and medium companies in New Zealand that basically make up the bulk of our companies. Like most places in the world.
Like most places in the world.
That's right.
You know, the SMEs are the biggest sector for business.
Yeah, so there was a real equity. There's a real equity drive in the setting up of Taxi.
I'm just sort of wondering why more places in the world don't have this sort of legislation. It sounds fabulous.
Oh, it has a really particular kind of history, which maybe we'll get into one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
But when you set up your business, because you've had your business for 12 years now.
The first one, yes.
The first one. And when you got into that, I was reading that you and your husband sold your house to finance that.
Yes.
That's pretty scary, you know that.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you talk me through that?
It was wild. It's wild. It's totally wild.
I remember that was always. I've had businesses for close to 30 years. And
Yes.
I've always owned a house as well, and always my biggest fear was
You lose the house.
If I make a mistake, like if I do something wrong and I screw up, I could lose my house.
Yes.
And that's always been a fear of mine. But in a way that you got rid of that because you sold the house.
We sold the house, so we couldn't be scared about that anymore. So it's a kind of wonderful story and a wild story. My husband was made redundant, and that was extremely painful. I think sometimes the effects of redundancy, we kind of skip over them because it's just work, but it's never just work. Like, it actually can be a very painful experience for people that takes years to get over. And this was one of those. At the time, we had 2 small children, and we're about to have our third. And we just felt that the door that had opened up to us was to set up our own business. We looked at, again, what we call the tax pooling market in New Zealand, and we felt there was a real gap there, again, looking at the smaller businesses. So, so we sold our house, and we moved home when our youngest was 6 days old. And we had 2 other, toddlers, and we moved into our friend's house. And then we went 18 months without any income coming in, and a lot of very hard work, early starts, late starts. I was the primary caregiver for our 3 beautiful children at that stage, so that took up a lot of my day. So working early and working late. And it took 18 months for us to do our first deal and kind of get that going. And I think what was, I was scared that it wouldn't work, but that was outweighed, I think, by my very strong belief that this is what we were supposed to be doing, that there would be real benefit provided to companies and to the country if we could get this to work. And I do think it's really important for entrepreneurs to have that strong sense of belief, like, this is actually what I'm supposed to be doing. So any barrier that comes my way, I will move through that. I will push through that. And for us, it was really that the benefits of the tax system should be available to every New Zealand business, not just big guys. And secondly, that actually business could be a force for good. That business has a particular role in society that can't be filled by government or by the not-for-profit sector, but a particular role to play, and that business can actually be a really great part of solving some of the problems that we see, and also that the workplace is important. It's so important that workplaces are wonderful restorative places for people, that people aren't broken by work.
But you spend so much time in the office as well.
That's exactly right. You spend so much time in the office, and often the biggest factor that's going to affect, how you go home to your children, how you engage with your community, what you think about yourself, where your anxiety levels are up to, is actually the workplace that you're in. So that was another really important driver that I guess sustained us through that difficult first 18 months was, no, we believe that we can do something different here.
Well, that's, I want to go in detail about your business, but one of the things I wanted to ask too is I was reading that you were talking about just kind of the balancing of work and life and
Sure.
and all of that, and you had mentioned that the cognitive load that you're facing with all of that, and that you've really realized that you and your husband really need to share that
yes.
equally. Talk me through that a bit, because
Sure.
I think a lot of female business owners struggle with this and feel that not only are they running the business, they're going home and they're doing everything at home. And it just gets to a point where you're at breaking point.
And it's unsustainable. And I definitely want to talk about that. But I do think that hopefully our children's generation, or at least their children's generation, will look at us and say, those women were mad.
Yeah.
What were they doing? Thinking that they could run a business and run a family and somehow keep it all together.
You can't have it all.
It's so hard. And so I think, I think in my own journey, it's worth noting that for 5 years, before we started the business, for 5 years, I was a stay-at-home mum. That's what I did. I come from a legal background. I did M&A work, but I did policy work. But for 5 years, I was at home. I was, I was doing play dates and morning teas and, lots of enriching, nurturing activities for the three little ones. That's what I did. And then for the next chunk of time, which was probably about another 5 years, I was the primary caregiver. And Josh was we were in business together, but I held the cognitive load. And then there's probably one night, I remember I was in the kitchen. So we were both working in the business full time, and I was making the school lunches. And I think he's a fabulous partner. We can talk about his wonderful role. But he said, hey, I think I'm just going to go to bed, or I'm going to go and read a book or something. And I thought, okay, I've still got work to do tonight. Why am I the one making the lunches? Oh, that's because I've always made the lunches. But why am I making the lunches?
Yeah.
Because you're super smart. I reckon you could make the lunches. And so that was just like a little moment which probably started our shift in sharing the cognitive load. So the lunches was the first to go.
Yeah.
And so, started doing lunches, or actually it's just who should do the lunches. It's more of a conversation. But it was really when he, stepped in about 5 years ago and said, hey, I'm going to run the family. And that frees you up to really run the businesses. And so he took over the Excel spreadsheet that runs the routine, the life, So he's the one now that knows all of the things. So
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing. Is he amazing, or is he just like every other woman out there that's doing this? Right.
Well, this is the thing that, okay, most women who I know do most of it.
I know.
Now, I've had no choice because I've been a single parent for most of my kids.
Well, respect.
And
deep respect.
Even when I was married, I did all the work.
I know, yeah.
That's just how it happened. But I think
a
lot of times too that we don't necessarily ask for it.
I don't, I think that's right. And I think what I hadn't expected was, whilst I was so grateful that I was that I wasn't holding the cognitive load for the family, if you like, that actually Josh knew every pickup, every drop off, who had swimming on what day, who needed a costume or a birthday present, etc., etc. I was so grateful for that. But I think women need to know it's actually quite uncomfortable. It can be quite uncomfortable when you step out of that gendered role, and when one of your children actually need something and they go straight to dad, or they assume dad is the one that's going to know, or dad gets the invitation from the school, or Dad does it in an incredibly different way than mum does it, and you've just got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So we do talk about the desire for somebody to hold the mental load or the cognitive load, but actually the reality of it can be a lot more uncomfortable than we might think. It's different because, of course, your husband, partner, spouse is never going to do it the way you do it.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to be okay with that and let that go.
But
and
it's
that
also
can be
kind of
quite
like in
hard.
business too, when we're
Right.
hiring people that,
Right.
you know, you have to let that go.
Right.
And you also don't want your business stacked with people that are just like you. You need to hire the opposites.
Definitely.
And so that's where, but it is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
and I hear this from a lot of our members in Female Fusion too, that they're like, I'm just so tired because I'm doing all of it. And sometimes it's because they haven't asked. And other times it's just that their husband is not willing to do it, which is really disappointing as
Very
well.
disappointing.
When you have a marriage where you have a partner who's not willing to pitch in, that's
Yeah.
frustrating as well, especially when you're running your own business.
Well, I'd be having some pretty serious chats with that person.
Yes.
If that was my partner.
Yeah.
And, you know, they kind of married you, or they've fallen in love with you, or they've partnered with you because they see something in you, which
Totally.
is like drive and ambition. And, you know, when that comes out, well, actually, it's time to adjust.
But not all men are okay with that.
I know.
Not all men
know.
are okay with that.
I know.
I
agree.
They like it in the beginning, that they're like, oh, you know, you're super smart.
Yeah.
I know, because this is a conversation I constantly have with friends who
I know. I
are
agree.
very high powered, that they're just like, why do I not have a partner who gets that and who supports it? Some do.
Oh, I know. And I think the value of very frank conversations before you decide to partner with this person for the rest of your life are really great. So with our own daughters, they will be, you know, they'll be having some very honest conversations about what their expectations are of
love
that
that.
partnership. Yeah.
And it's this is why I love this generation. So my daughter Eva is 15, and we have very similar conversations just about like how your relationship would be, how men should speak with you as well.
Beautiful.
Because, you know, she'll have things as well that she's a competitive sailor, and so she's out on the water. And a lot of times, like, people will say really mean things on the water because it's a bit of a mental game, right? So she'll have boys shouting at her because she's beating them, and she'll have boys shouting at her, you're fat, you're ugly, you know, you've got a big forehead, you know, all of these different things, like just mean things. And we have these conversations about how, you know, you can't let stuff like that bother you.
No, absolutely.
And also as well for her to be like, that's not okay.
No,
like,
that is not okay.
that's
Not for
just-
anyone.
it's not okay to say that
It's
stuff.
not human. We're not humaning well when we're
Right.
talking like that to each other. And I think you'll like this. So I've not spoken. We speak about a lot in our family. We have 3 children, 17, 15, and 12, almost 12, boy, girl. Very open lines of communication. To be honest, I don't even remember speaking to our youngest about being clear on, you know, expectations. But one day she just said to me when she was quite little, Mum, I've been thinking about, you know, and she's going to probably marry a man. She's like, I'm thinking about the man I'm going to marry, and Mum, he is just going to have to be so capable. I'm like, oh, Elsa, tell me why.
I like that.
Yeah, and she's like, well, he's going to have to like run the family and support me while I run my own business. And I'm like,
You
yes,
go, girl.
Yes, you go, girl. But it's not just having the conversation. It's because they've seen it with their dad, right?
Yes.
It's actually being modeled for them. And I don't know if that's the motivation that female entrepreneurs or male partners or female partners, whatever it is, need to, you know, to actually do things differently. Is she cannot conceive of a partnership where the expectation would be on her to be a full-time stay-at-home mum or be the primary, you know, cognitive load holder. That's just not on her imagination.
Yeah. But it's I do think it's this generation as well.
Yes,
Like
so great.
Oh my gosh, I find it's interesting that, like, I remember growing up and my, parents would be like, oh, like this generation is so bad. And like my grandparents would be like, oh, every generation would complain about the next one. And I thought, this generation are so freaking amazing.
Amazing.
So much better than us. And I remember like even as a girl, like when I was growing up, being told, yeah, you can have it all, you can do everything. But then making you think that you had to do everything.
Sure.
And
all at once.
All at once.
You can't stage it. Yeah.
And even if it didn't work, you had to accept it and you had to suck up.
Yeah, because otherwise there's potentially something wrong with you as a human. You weren't strong enough or bright enough or something like that. Yeah, no.
I think, especially as women, like I'm considered Generation X. The Gen Xers were like, just suck it up and get on with it. Yeah. Somebody said something to you that was offensive at work. Too bad, snowflake.
I know, work is work.
Right.
Leave your personal lives at home, which I totally disagree with, and make a point of making that very clear. Don't take it personally. Well, I am a person, and I will be taking a lot of things personally because I am a person. This is it, right?
Well, we spend so much time at work, and I think this is something before we started filming you were saying to me that is really important for you, the workplace culture.
Yeah,
absolutely. Tell me a little bit of things, because I know small businesses, and you're not a small business anymore, but even when you started out, that sometimes businesses struggle with how they set up the business and how they create that culture. What have you done?
I think my encouragement would be, hey, you've got a great business idea, or you're a couple of years into your business. It might be that you're not just creating a business, you're actually creating a workplace, and that workplace is going to impact people's lives. So think about that as soon as you can. As soon as you get a kind of glimmer that, oh, I'm going to be hiring people, I'm going to be hiring a bunch of people. Understand that you're creating a workplace, not just a product, not just a business, and that workplaces have huge effects on people's lives, because we are there for so many hours a week. And I think that wasn't an add-on for us. It was built into our very foundation. So and it's much easier to do it that way because you're very intentional about who you hire, you're intentional about what you write down, you're intentional about what you create room for in your budget, things like that. So I think being really intentional about creating a workplace, and the workplace, with people are there for 40 hours, whether they're remote or with you in person, it's going to have a bigger impact on someone's life than almost anything else. The way they go home at night, to their families, the way that they parent, the way that they engage with their community, the way they think about themselves and their security or assurance, the way their anxiety levels play out. All of this has so much to do with how they experience work and how they experience the workplace that we as entrepreneurs are creating for them. So I think it's a huge responsibility. And when anyone new joins, Tax Traders or Taxi, we have a first day ritual and we have a few key messages. And one of my key messages is to say, thank you for trusting us. You have trusted us with 40 hours a week. You've trusted us with your income. You've trusted us with your satisfaction. You've trusted us with your career progression. You've trusted us with the way you go home at night. And that is a responsibility that I take seriously. And businesses should do better. They should do so much better, because who is actually making their business successful? It's their people. Yeah. It's their people. And it's not our right as business owners to treat these people as cogs in a machine or robots or anything like that. They are beautifully made, holistic humans. And when we see humans well, they actually come alive and they actually work better. And that's not why we treat them beautifully, right? That's not the motivation. But it is the fact that if you treat your people beautifully and see them well and see them holistically, actually they will just do better work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And do you have examples of any things that you do for your team?
Sure, yeah. So before they even start with us, we do Gallup strengths with them, so that when they arrive, they've got a good sense of kind of a little bit how they're wired, and we do complementary strengths coaching for everyone anytime they need that.
And is that an in-house person that you have?
So she's not full-time with us, but she is definitely in-house, and she's in the office a lot, and she's
Beautiful.
amazing and well-known. So that's something to say, hey, I'm interested in who you are and how you work, and we want to have a common narrative or language for explaining difference, but liking difference as well. Like, I see why you're like that. So strengths coaching, we have unlimited therapy for every human that works with us and their partners and their children, via wonderful EAP. And not only do we have that therapy available, but on any given month we would have a third of our people accessing some kind of support, whether that's support for their kids, whether that's some financial coaching, whether they just want to talk about something they're getting stuck on. So there's no shame in accessing therapy. It's something that we really celebrate.
And is it therapy or also business coaching as well?
So we do that too. So apart from kind of therapy, then we also have executive coaching, agile coaching available, and that's all part of working on the team. So there's a lot that we're doing that's saying, hey, we really want to see you as you are.
Yeah.
We do a lot for our families. So one of my favorite things that we have is that our primary caregivers have 6 months full pay leave, but the non-primary caregivers also have 6 months parental leave. So that primarily means that our dads are at home with their babies, which either means they can take 6 weeks, 8 weeks with their new baby at home, and or their partner might want to go back to work and they can do 6 months at home full-time, understanding what is it like to be the sole caregiver for a baby. And like, that is not just beautiful for the human, but for the dad, but that's actually like kind of better on a societal level, if you like, because then we're not actually kind of trapping women into the specialization trap where suddenly they're the specialist at being at looking after children. And so that seems to be the logical thing for them to continue to do. So in my kind of, in my dreams, it's like, okay, so, family welcomes a new baby and mum has a bit of time at home, dad has a bit of time at home, maybe the baby's like 18 months old, and then they think, okay, how do we want to create our family?
Yeah.
And we also have nannies on site, so we don't have any babies in at the moment, which is a bit sad, but we have people bring their little ones in if they want that, no pressure, but if they want to bring that in, and then the nanny will take a couple of kids out to the zoo or the museum. And every time, Jen, I see a little one in the office, or they're having afternoon tea in the kitchen, I just think to myself, this is not that hard. It's not that hard to actually integrate work and life in a way that is joyful. It's not that hard. We've just got to try a few things differently. So that's a couple of things that we do, for our families, and
Beautiful.
so many other things.
And how many employees do you have right now?
We have 45 on the team. So
so it's still not like massive. It's not hundreds and hundreds right now.
No, it will be.
Yes, it will be.
And I will be unchanged in my commitment to these kinds of policies again, because they're hard baked into our DNA. There is no question of, do we have budget for that? It's like saying, do we have budget for an office? It's like, no. We need an office to do work. Well, some of us need an office to do work. Therefore, that's a no-brainer. And I've got the same kind of view on some of these policies to do with our humans. It's like, no, this, if we're going to be in business, we're actually going to do it this way. So it's a no-brainer. So as we get bigger,
And do you find your employee retention rate is...
Oh, it's through the roof. We hardly ever lose people.
They're like, I'm onto a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say we don't have difficult conversations. And in many ways, they're more difficult because you are deeply connected and you love and care for people as humans. But actually, it's important to have difficult conversations. That is actually part of being a great either employer or a great colleague or a great friend, is to be honest and have those difficult conversations. So, but no, we don't lose many people.
And when you're looking for the people to work for you, do you hire more for skill or attitude, mentality?
I like to hire. definitely, I mean, depending on the role. So I'm definitely looking for someone who will build our culture. So I don't like the word cultural fit because I don't particularly want someone to fit into our culture, but I want someone who will build our culture, who will take it to potentially a new place. So it's not cultural fit, but it's like cultural build, if you like. Definitely that's the first thing, and attitude. So, and we do a lot of testing before we hire people, so we get a good view of where they are. So we're definitely looking at that. We look for high levels of skills, but I like to look for people who are also different. So whether that's they've had a really interesting and different career path, or whether they are neurodiverse, or whether they have been a mum at home juggling different things, whether they've come back from a period of sickness. Any one of those people are going to bring a very different approach and viewpoint to business, and that is how we get better decisions. That's how we build more innovative products, and that's actually how we're more successful, if we can actually bring people who are different. So some people aren't so, they don't want to disclose, I have ADHD or I have ASD, but for me, that makes a person actually so much more attractive.
Totally,
because
right?
I'm getting a different brain.
Yeah.
And I want different brains. If we all had brains like me, we'd only ever get the same outcomes at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And it is, I have, both of my kids are neurodiverse,
Right.
ADHD, my son has autism as well.
Right.
And the thing is I love the difference and the different way
Absolutely.
of thinking.
Absolutely.
And I hate that they call it a disorder, because it's
Same.
not like, the language around that needs to change, because
Absolutely.
it's not a disorder, it's not a disability, it's just that you look at the world in a different way.
Yeah,
But the problem
beautiful.
is that the whole world is set up to not recognize that, like starting at education systems.
Yeah.
And I found that with my kids when they went through school, especially with my son because he's older, that they were kind of like, no, we fit the square peg into the round hole.
I know.
And you're like, but
I know.
he doesn't learn that way. And I just wish that there was an education system somewhere in the world that would be like, we're going to teach in a way that benefits these kids. So you could be super smart, but you have massive exam anxiety, so you're not going to do exams. We will give you a project to do so we can assess you that way.
Yeah.
And they don't do that. And I really like it. It's so great that we as business owners, and this is what I love about being an entrepreneur, is that you can break away from the system.
Absolutely.
And almost trailblaze something different in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're not bound by, this is the way we've always done it. This is the policy.
And I couldn't agree more. And not only is it the fact that we can do that, I think we should do that.
Totally.
Because that system is just broken. And as entrepreneurs and as business owners, we've got the ability to, like you say, do something, very, very differently, and say, who are you as a human? And I don't care if you've got 3,000 people or 45 people like we do, because big organisations can do this just as well as small organisations.
Of course they can, but they don't want to.
Yeah, some do.
Some do, but a lot of them don't.
No.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that's because it's hard. Like it's not, what do I mean? It's not hard. I mean, it requires effort to have. Just requires sensitivity. Just to say, who is this person that I have, who is this person I've hired? Do you like to drink coffee? Do you like to drink tea? Do you think really quickly? Do you think slowly? Are you good at remembering things or not remembering things? It's like, who is this person? And let's find all that about.
Let's find the strengths.
Let's find the strengths, and let's get you working in those strengths. Because again, people are going to come alive. They're going to love their job, but you are also going to get amazing ideas that would otherwise not come to you. So I definitely see neurodiversity as a strength. I look for hiring, that kind of brain, and I'm really happy to work with that. So believe it or not, and you might believe this very easily, not everyone in the world is actually finds it easy to make calendar appointments, right? You need to make a meeting and you want 5 people there. So in my brain, that's pretty easy. I can look at everyone's calendar and go, cool, there's the gap. Well, not every brain finds that easy.
Yeah.
Not every brain finds that easy. That's fine.
Yeah.
Not every brain is going to
It doesn't mean that you're not smart, right?
Exactly.
It means that you have other things that you're good at.
Right. And so people find air conditioning. You know, I can be sitting with someone, maybe one of our wonderful, humans with ASD or ADHD. The air conditioning is as loud and dominant in their brain as my voice is. Now, oh my gosh, they're working so much harder. Well, let's just fix the air conditioning. Or let's just meet in a different room. Or I know that our, beautiful people who have ADHD, they hate forgetting things that are important, and they use all the tricks in their book and all the tricks that they've got because they don't want to forget to do a thing or say something to someone or remember something. But it just doesn't always happen like that. It's not because they're thoughtless or they don't care. It's just because they're wired differently.
Yeah.
So, but some of our breakthrough moments have come about because we've created an environment of trust where people have felt they can really be themselves and, have said the thing that would be shocking anywhere else. But we've gone, oh, cool, you're calling that out, ASD, you're calling that out. You're calling exactly a spade, if you like. Yeah. And wow, boy, did we need to hear that. Nobody else would say that. You've said it. And gosh, that's been exactly what we needed to hear. Then that's a real example from work, actually.
Yeah. But it is, the diversity is so great. And I love doing business with different companies that are different or buying from companies that have diversity and diversity like on their board, within their workplace, like with women, with different women, with men, with different ethnic minorities, with different ages as well.
Yes.
Because I don't like seeing it that it's all people in their 50s or their 60s, because you also need to have the younger generation share their perspective, because if you want them as your customers as well, you need to hear from that.
Absolutely. And the research is so clear now. You are going to get a better product. You're going to get a better result. If you look at women around the boardroom table, if you have 2 women on your board, you're just automatically going to be more successful.
Yeah.
You're just automatically going to be more successful. And the data's really clear on that. If you have people from different backgrounds, so from not just affluent backgrounds, but a range of backgrounds, you are going to get a better level of people management. It's just the case. And I think that, we're seeing this more and more, but we need to be sure that we're not just plucking someone and saying, oh, you're neurodiverse or you're diverse or you're from a different kind of background. Right. I'll pluck you in to this system and I won't ask the system to change. And then I'll wonder why you're not thriving and why I'm not getting all these good results I expected, We actually have to be open to changing the system and to be thinking very differently about how we operate.
Such a fair point. And I love as well that, if you can do it as a small business, you can do it as a bigger business.
Yeah, absolutely. You've just got to... In many ways, it's probably more difficult when you get larger. But, you read about what Google are doing and they've got some incredible policies in place. And, they've got thousands and thousands of employees everywhere. And I think if you're small, you've actually got a wonderful opportunity to say, what do I want this workplace to be like? Yeah. What do I want my impact on humans to be? And I believe that business is a force for good, should be a force for good. If you're not doing good, you shouldn't have a license to operate a business. But I think we forget that one of the biggest social goods we can do as a business is create an amazing workplace for people. Start at home.
Love that. I want to ask you, so the decision that you and your husband made to live off your savings for 18 months, a bit crazy.
And then we almost ran out, to be fair. We got down to only a few $1,000s to our name, and we didn't actually have, parents that could financially help us. Super, super supportive, but in no way to financially help us. So it was just us. I mean, we were selling things. Yeah. And living in a friend's house. So wild. Yeah.
And After going through that experience, what advice would you give to other business owners that are maybe thinking of doing that, or who have done it?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably into a mixed mind about whether I would recommend selling your house. So I don't think I want to go on the record saying that I recommend that. It was the way that we funded the business, but obviously there's many other ways to do it. Again, I think it came back to having a strong core belief that you should be doing this, that there is some good that is needed in the world, that you are really uniquely positioned to provide, and that there is value in your offering. So I think that underlying belief is really important, because things get tough, they get lonely. You can't actually see. It's like you're on a train and the train track's been laid down only a couple of meters in front of you at a time. So it is tough, but having that underlying belief that we're going to make a difference, this is needed, this is going to help people, is really important. And then I think there's all the all the typical business things, and your 10 mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make. That episode's really helpful to listen to, but not really understanding what I would say it's important to really understand who your client is. Yeah. So why would they choose you? So who is your client? Like, who are they? Really understand that. Don't think that everyone's like you, because they're not.
So many people say that. Right. They're like, oh, my ideal customer is me. It's like, are you going to buy all your product? Yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah. So knowing who your client is and having a real strategy and then a plan for why they would choose you. So doing that deep dive on kind of research before you start, probably doing something that you're good at and that you like is, I think you say that as well. Like, it's really hard to be good at something you hate. So so choosing an area that is something that you're really good at and potentially familiar with as well in one way or the other, but certainly knowing why you're in business and what good you hope to see happen as a result.
That makes such a difference. So I see the people who go into business and go, I just need to make money. I'm just doing it to make money. Ooh. I know, right? I mean, but they don't really want to be doing it, but they're like, well, I just want to make money off of it. It's going in for the wrong reasons, because you're going to have this for a while.
Right. And I think, I think that you can, I think there's a difference when you interact with a business that just wants to make money, as opposed to a business that has found a way to help people do what they love and make money at the same time. I do think there's a difference in how you engage. I mean, we set really aggressive profit targets and we go after them, but it's really important how we make money. So, how we do that with integrity and generosity and joyfulness. And it's also really important to understand, that lovely Peter Drucker quote about profit being like oxygen. Yeah. So, you need it. You need it as we need to breathe so that we can do amazing things. But hey, if you think the point of life is breathing, you've really missed a trick. And that's kind of something that really resonates with our businesses. Yeah.
Beautiful. And so Taxi is a couple weeks old.
Yes.
You were saying. So tell me, what's kind of next? What are your plans?
Well, we are very focused on Taxi, our new offering at the moment. But I think that the heart of equity for businesses is very strong. And so I think that, and then I think, well, we've had to build a bunch of staff in our businesses because people, particularly around people care, because we haven't found anything that would suit us. So progression frameworks, onboarding programs, offboarding programs. We've created everything in-house, yeah. And I think so many businesses out there want to know how to love their people, how to care for their people, but I don't think they have given themselves maybe permission to do that. Like, okay, this is not a soft thing that you're doing. This is a good thing, but it's also a wise thing. So I think that, and then they don't have the tools to know how to do that either. So I think if you ask me where would I like to go next, I'd like to probably look after the same, group of businesses that we're looking after with Taxi, and encourage them and give them really practical tools for how they can really create amazing workplaces for their people. So that would be something I'm looking at next. But there's always, always lots of ideas. Don't they say that startups and entrepreneurs, we don't die from starvation. No. What is it? Not starvation. It's indigestion. Too many ideas.
Too many ideas. I think we're all like that, right? It's like, that's a good idea. That's one. It's like you have to do one at a time, or it gets to be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, one at a time. And even running our main business and doing kind of a startup within that was challenging. Was a challenge.
Yeah.
I think I know how to do that now, but that took a while to work out. Yeah.
But even if you've done it, because I found even with Female Fusion that I've owned so many other businesses, and you set up another business, and there's a lot of things that I was able to kind of leapfrog and get there faster because I've done it. But it's still startup time. You still have to go through the same stuff.
Absolutely.
And you don't, even for things like track record, that you might have a track record in the other business, but the track record doesn't follow you there.
No. You've got
everything needs to be built up again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's really true. And again, I think the drive for equity for me and for us will always be a common theme in whatever we do next. Like, what is only available to big corporates that actually should be available to everyone? What are those things? So I think that would be a consistent theme.
It's amazing because small businesses need so many other things.
Right. Yeah. And they want to be amazing employers. Nobody sets up a business and thinks, I just want to, be awful to my people. Yeah, no one wants that. But again, it's what's the permission giving? What are the tools you need? What's the encouragement you need to see that happen?
But oftentimes people don't know what makes a good workplace because oftentimes if their work experience has been toxic work environment, you don't know. You don't know what a good workplace looks like.
No, very few people I think have experienced a great workplace, and when people start with us, it's really the case that many of them have a form of PTSD that comes from work.
Yeah.
I sometimes look at it and think, gosh, this is like you've just come out of a toxic relationship where you've been gaslit, where you've had your security, like your self-esteem destroyed.
Horrible bosses can really do a lot of damage.
Horrible bosses can do a lot of damage, and it takes people a while to trust again, which is why I take the responsibility so seriously. So it's like, well, I want to be the one workplace that is restorative, that is joyful, that is satisfying, that actually helps you be the best version of yourself. And I'm not perfect. I am not perfect. Like, I'm human. I make mistakes, as everyone does, but my promise generally is I will pick myself up. I will apologize for that mistake. I will try and be better next time, and own that and make something out of it. And some of our best developments have come out of doing something poorly and going, okay, that's not us. That's not in line with our DNA. We actually need to do that better. What can that look like? So we try and learn from our mistakes, right?
Yeah. Well, having that humility to be able to do that is so powerful as well.
I hope so.
Well, so many amazing things coming up, and what a beautiful company as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing about what's happening in the wellness space, the one that you're going to set up after that. So the people in wellness space at work, just to hear what's going to come up with that as well.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it too.
Maybe you can have one set up to address entrepreneurs that wouldn't just be in New Zealand, because it seems like what you have right now is very niche.
That would be the dream.
Need for this.
That would be the dream, is for the next venture that we set up to have broader appeal and broader scalability. So
amazing.
That's the dream.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a dream, and love your work. Keep up the amazing work you're doing.
Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but social media can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes as a business owner. It just feels like there is constant work that always needs to be done, which is why I have recorded for you a completely free 45-minute masterclass called Marketing Without Social Media. And inside, I share with you my tools and techniques that I use to grow Female Fusion and the other businesses that I have had. So I give you the tools, the techniques, and the frameworks to put that in place in your own business. All you need to do is head over to femalefusionnetwork.com